30 Palestinians killed in the last 24 hours as Israeli airstrikes target Gaza. Jordan condemns Israeli maps claiming parts of Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon and Syria as historical Israel. And the United States announces a 6-month waiver on restrictions to support aid and essential services in Syria. It's 4 p.m. call local time and you're now watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Israeli airstrikes on Gaza over the past 24 hours have killed 30 Palestinians. Palestinian media reported strikes near Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia and a home in Al Shati camp, killing 4 and injuring others. The Palestinian Health Ministry has reported 31 deaths and 57 injuries in 3 massacres by Israeli occupation forces in Gaza. Total casualties since October the 7th, 2023 have now amounted to 45,885 deaths and 109,196 injuries. Israeli occupation forces have killed at least 3 people in ramp-up operations across the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported that an 18-year-old was killed overnight in an Israeli airstrike in Tamun, town northeast of Nablus city, while a 40-year-old man was shot dead in the nearby village of Talouza. The official Palestinian news agency also reported a 2nd Palestinian killed in a strike in Tamun. An Israeli airstrike on a home in the El Bureij camp in central Gaza has killed 4 Palestinians and injured 13 others. Meanwhile, another body was recovered from a targeted house near Al Nusayrat camp. The Israeli military has confirmed the death of a commander from its 932nd Battalion in northern Gaza. This adds to earlier reports of 2 soldiers' death and severe injuries amid ongoing clashes. The Palestinian Health Ministry has warned of an impending catastrophe as hospitals run out of fuel due to Israeli restrictions. The crisis stems from Israeli restrictions in fuel entering Gaza since the war began, leaving critical facilities such as oxygen stations, medicine storage units and the incubators at risk of shutting down. The ministry also accused Israel of forcing aid convoys to take dangerous routes prone to theft, further complicating the delivery of essential supplies to the besieged enclave. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom advised and emphasized the devastating impact of the Gaza war on children, describing it as a humanitarian tragedy. He revealed that 7 newborns died in December due to freezing conditions as shelters for displaced families lack basic heating. Tedros called for an immediate ceasefire to prevent further loss of innocent lives, stressing that children in Gaza are bearing the brunt of the ongoing conflict and dire living conditions. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency UNRWA has condemned the deaths of children in Gaza from the extreme cold, calling it a tragedy that no child in the 21st century should have to face. Displaced Palestinians' families living in makeshift tents lack proper heating and clothing to endure the harsh winter. UNRWA urged international action to provide urgent aid and ensure that basic needs such as blankets and warm clothing are met to prevent further loss of life. Israeli opposition leader Lapid has criticized Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, accusing him of failing to secure the release of captives held in Gaza since October the 7th of the year 2023. Lapid stated that Israel's continued military presence in Gaza hinders a comprehensive deal for their release and contradicts the nation's political and security interests. He called for an immediate halt to the war, citing unprecedented public support for a ceasefire and a negotiated agreement. The Israeli Energy Minister has confirmed that negotiations are ongoing for a deal to secure the release of captives held in Gaza. The Israeli cabinet is set to meet today to deliberate on the proposed agreement. The minister emphasized the government's commitment to doing everything possible to bring the captives home, highlighting progress in efforts to address the issue amid growing public pressure for a resolution.
לפני שעה קלה חיל האוויר תקף מטרות של ארגון הטרור החותי
Former Israeli National Security Chief has warned that a continued military presence in Gaza would result in ongoing soldier casualties without achieving long-term control. He urged Israel to announce its readiness to end hostilities in exchange for the return of all the captives, stressing that a prolonged conflict contradicts Israel's strategic interests and would lead to avoidable losses. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has urged the international community to take decisive action to halt what it described as genocide and forced displacement in Gaza. It called for practical measures towards implementing a two-state solution and condemned the statements by Israeli officials advocating collective punishment. The ministry warned that such actions escalate violence and undermine efforts towards peace and stability. Jordan's foreign ministry has condemned Israeli claims that maps depicting parts of Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria as historical Israel are accurate. The ministry also rejected calls by Israeli officials to annex the West Bank and establish settlements in Gaza, labeling these policies a blatant violation of international law and norms. Jordan reiterated its stance against actions that escalate tensions in the region. The World Food Programme has condemned an Israeli attack on its aid convoy in Gaza, calling for the safe passage of humanitarian aid across the region. In a statement, the WFP described Sunday's shooting near the Wadi Gaza checkpoint as a horrifying incident in which Israeli forces targeted a clearly marked convoy, endangering staff lives and immobilizing the vehicles. The organization urged all parties to ensure that humanitarian operations can proceed safely and without obstruction. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has expressed deep concern over reports that a 1-month-old baby in Gaza died from hypothermia. In a statement, the United Nations Office said that this is the 8th child death due to cold in less than 3 weeks. It added that these deaths were preventable if the necessary items to protect these children have been accessible to their families. It also stressed once again that civilians and civilian infrastructure, including humanitarian workers, convoys and assets, must be protected in accordance with international humanitarian law. And for more analysis, we now move to Salma Marawan in our newsroom. Salma?
Thank you, Rana. And for further analysis on the deteriorating situation in Gaza, we're joined from Ramallah by the Professor of Political Science at Al-Quds University, Dr. Ayman El-Raqab. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us on Qnews. And first off, in light of the Israeli restrictions on the aid convoys and the intensifying airstrikes, what are the implications of hospitals in Gaza running out of fuel for critical medical services?
After greetings, there are more than one problem. The first one in the limits of the input of the aids in general. Only Karba outlet that is occupied and determined the quantity of the aids of the Gaza Strip, basically. And certainly the Palestinian people is affected. The occupation's justification that should only limited quantities, which is very difficult matter. And another thing, and if there is a popular attempt from the people, either from the people or the Palestinian factions, to secure this aid that could be targeted by the Israelis, even that would have to transfer the aid from Naftia and any health sectors. So it's only less than 20% of the health sectors that are operative. And sometimes some of the shipments to be looted by the thieves, that the occupations are allowed to be moved in the buffering zones, or the freedom of mobility protected by the occupation forces. So it is easily to be loaded and steal some of the quantities that included the shipments.
Regarding the international community, how effective has the UN and other international organizations been in addressing these humanitarian challenges in Gaza?
Unfortunately, when the WHO describes basically that the non-allowance by the occupation of delivering the aids as a whole. If we talk specifically for the health sector, WHO is diagnosed this and crippled to practice a pressure on the occupations. Even the international organization isn't capable to pressure in Israel, which is something an add, as they are international, they cannot do this. When the occupation state banned basically the UNRWA from being operative in the Palestinian territories, and basically in its headquarters in Jerusalem, it's in a blatant violation of the international laws. How would the international community, for the occupation forces, is to prevent such organization to be in place. And the international community is silent without taking any measures. I think all this that helped in increases the blatant deeds by and practices not against the Palestinian people but against the international organizations who are in dire need to issue a resolution based on the 7th article by the Security Council to execute a humanitarian plan to deliver the aids at least to serve under the health sector. We're talking about the babies that killed due to the harsh and gross cold weather during only 1 week. And the numbers only primarily, and of course, are higher than that. And we are in need for an international measures that should be serious and that the Israeli or rather, but the ICC is only taking a very effective resolution by issue a warrant arrest for the leaders of the Israeli command.
Now, sir, moving to the West Bank, what are the immediate and potential consequences of the Israeli occupation forces expanding their military operations there?
Yesterday there was a Fida's operation, and a very military one, in a very close in the village, and in the security, even the areas that take place in the operation under the control of the occupation parties and held the responsibility against the Palestinian Authority, and there is some sort of piracy to their monies, and they are not actually getting their wages and entering some areas that exceed 16% of the West Bank. And according to Oslo Agreement, it's under the Palestinian Authority. Yet the Israelis are very insistent to enter these areas. There are some sort of weakening the authority, the Palestinian Authority. I mean that they are trying to control its influence. It started from Jenin to move in different areas, but the occupation forces prevent this. That's why we say that the occupation forces are missing around in the Palestinian status in the West Bank. That was clear through the statement of Mitrovic, the Ministry of Finance, by confiscated 14,000 of kilometers in the Israeli settlements. So we're talking about the expansion of a great sector in the western settlements, hoping that Trump would admit that this settlement is a part of the occupation as the far wing is planning. All this would push forward of more violent, and of course the Palestinian people aren't going to stay still because their lands were being confiscated. And the escalation is a must to then, upon the presence of the far wing in the Israeli cabinet.
Yeah, speaking of this, the Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich has stated that he hopes that the upcoming U.S. administration under President Donald Trump will recognize their efforts to expand settlements in the West Bank by 2025. What are the implications of such statements?
Before we talk about what Smotrich said, and even Trump himself as the most important friend to Israel, I am the one who made the Abrahami agreement, and by saying it, Al-Julan Heights is a part of Israel, and I am the one who moved the Israeli embassy from Jerusalem to Israel, and admit that this land is a part of the occupation state. Trump's project proposed in 2018 that stipulated the acknowledgement of spaces in the West Bank regarding the expansion of the settlement to be a part of the state of Israel, but never completed. Donald Trump will go forward to complete the project that will let Smotrich by saying that the arrival of Trump in the 20th of January would move forward of a momentum to acknowledge the biggest settlement as a part of the state of occupation. And it is a great violation or out of the U.S. statement by saying that they are an occupied land. Even lately, we've heard that the West Bank landed within the official rhetoric in the U.S. Political. It is a change that would allow much that they may acknowledge the parts of the West Bank that being confiscated and built settlement as a part of the Israeli occupation state.
That was the professor of political science at Quds University, Dr. Ayman El-Raqb. Thank you, sir, so much for your insights. And now we're going to move back to Rana in the studio.
Thank you so much, Salma. Now we move on to Syria, where the Damascus International Airport has resumed international flight operations after lifting restrictions that previously required special aviation permits. Syrian media reports that the changes effective today mark a return to normalcy for the airport, enabling easier access to global travel routes and services. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has reiterated support for a peaceful Syrian-led political transition during a call with Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan. Blinken emphasized the international community's shared goal of ensuring respect for all Syrians' rights, including minorities, and preventing Syria from being used as a base for terrorism. The conversation highlighted the importance of collaborative approach to achieve stability in the region.
And we've communicated those. That's direct contact, yes.
The United States has announced a 6-month waiver on certain restrictions to facilitate humanitarian aid and essential services in Syria. The decision allows the Treasury Department to authorize support for critical needs, including food, water, and medical supplies. This move aims to improve living conditions and ensure the delivery of vital assistance to Syrian communities facing ongoing challenges. Earlier, Syria's new Trade Minister Mehel Khalil al-Hassan has said that Syria is unable to make deals to import fuel, wheat or other key goods due to strict U.S. sanctions. He also added that Syria's new ruling administration had managed to scrap together enough wheat and fuel for a few months, but the country faces a catastrophe if sanctions are not frozen or lifted soon. That brings us to the end of the news bulletin. Here is what we have been covering. 30 Palestinians killed in the last 24 hours as Israeli airstrikes target Gaza. Jordan condemns Israeli claims of maps showing parts of Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon and Syria as historical Israel. And the United States announces a 6-month waiver on restrictions to support aid and essential services in Syria. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.